Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Laura and we are going to review another ink today. This is a fun one because I haven't even opened the box yet. It just arrived and I wanted to share it with you before I even got to see it. So this is by a company called Ferris Wheel Press. They have a lot of very fun and fancy inks that they package beautifully. This one is called Radiant Rosewing. And you can see it's a very metallic, pretty box with gold embossed writing, and it's just beautiful. It looks pretty on the shelf. This is a company where you're going to love the packaging and want to put it on display just as much as the inks themselves. So this ink has some special properties. The color is, it'll show you here, the base color is pink. It does not have a sheen. A sheen is, if you're new, by the way, if you're new to fountain pen inks, this is a perfect place because I'm new, so we're going to learn together. But anyway, a sheen is when you have like an ink that's one color, but maybe it has like a second color that kind of seeps out on the edges or whatever. You can, a second color comes through somehow, so you have like a two-colored ink kind of. This does not have that, but it does have a shimmer in like a pinky gold. It says pink and gold shimmer. And medium shading. I love shading. That's probably my favorite property of inks. That's where, let's say you're drawing a line with the ink and the line will be like a darker color at one part and a lighter color at the other. It's so pretty. It's probably my favorite property, and shimmers, of course, as well. That's the bottom. Here's the box again. So that's how this looks. And all other boxes are gorgeous like this. And I think they only put boxes on their the large bottles, like the full-size bottles. If you buy, they have like a 10 ml, like a little tiny bottle. I don't believe that comes in a box, but these full-size bottles do. So this is how it looks inside. And you unfold this, and then this cardboard is what's holding the bottle still so it doesn't roll around in shipment. And this is a little bit difficult to do around the camera, so I apologize if I mangle this. Alright, so this unfolds, that unfolds. And then they've got these bottles. First of all, this is beautiful ink without even taking it out and using it yet. But you can see there's the shimmers on the bottom that are kind of falling down there. It's very pretty. It's got this gold all the way around the bottle, the gold artwork, and these brass caps. And then that's the color on the bottom there, the name. And so what I do with these shimmers, you always want to shake them before you use them. The shimmers do sink to the bottom, so every time you go to dip your pen, you're going to want to shake the bottle. Put the cap back on first, shake it real good, and you can see how pretty, look how pretty that is. I cannot wait to test this out. All right, so the other thing is, as usual, I'm going to be showing you this ink on a variety of paper types because not everybody wants to spend the extra money on the fancy whatever papers. And most of the time when you see an ink review, they're doing it on a fancy paper. And that's fine because, you know, that's really going to show off the ink properties the best. However, if you just have a notebook that you want to write in, you know, you're going to want to see how that ink is going to perform on normal, everyday, cheap paper. Because if that's what you're using, you know, how are you going to know what the ink is really going to look like? Because it's kind of hard to tell on pictures, especially if the picture was taken with the ink on some fancy paper. Also, if you were not here for the last video, I reviewed this, which is this blue ink. It's very pretty. This is the different papers we used. And I believe that's, well, I do not know how this is pronounced, but the way I read it is Riviera de la Lune, which is something along the lines of River of the Moon or something. That was the last one. That was my very first ink that I pursued when I first saw it, and the whole story and everything is on the previous video, so go watch that if you're interested. Alright, so back to this one. We are going to see what this looks like, and look, see, you can see the golden shimmers down at the bottom and the pink shimmers. Oh, this is going to be so pretty. Okay, so let's start with the cheap papers, and we'll go from cheapest to expensive and then do the swatch. So this is my cheapest paper. This is a basic copy paper that cheap from Walmart. I cut them down to size. We're just gonna pull the sheet off of here. And I don't have these pulled off beforehand because I don't want to mix them up with the other papers. You can kind of tell by feel, but I don't want to make a mistake. All right, so let's start with this one. These are just glass dip pens. This pen is for doing the big swatch at the end. We use the other end of it. And glass dip pens are great for doing tests because you can just rinse them off with water and go to the next color or whatever. Very quick and easy. And they give you a nice line, and you know, you can see the different properties of the inks before you stick them in your pen. So I always do my swatches and things with glass dip pens and then decide what I want to put in my fountain pen. All right, let's see if I can open this without breaking anything. They have a seal on the inside to prevent them from leaking, and sometimes that grips really well. Okay, so now just dip this in. Grab this box. So first, do some scribbles. Then I like to lay down a heavier scribble like this. And then this is getting pretty dry. I think if the ink itself isn't dry, the tip of this glass pen, I think it got, when it was made, every glass pen, like when you write, you got to kind of turn it as you write to get the smooth side of the pen essentially. And I think I was writing with the wrong side of the pen. It was scratchy. All right, so let's try that again. Okay. So let's do that again. Yeah, it's scratchy. There we go, that's better. Okay. Some thicker lines, thicker lines. All right, we'll do this. And also the paper is gonna make a difference as far as how smoothly the ink goes down. And this, of course, is the cheap paper. I'll go ahead and write the name of this so we can remember for future. It says Radiant Rosewing. And this is Ferris Wheel Press, but I abbreviate it because I'm lazy. So this is the cheap printer paper. This is a really pretty pink. And you can see the shimmers coming through real nice. Yeah, I like that. Now, some of the properties of this ink are not going to really show. This is one of the reasons why I do these tests, because on the different types of paper, because of this exact thing. So this is cheap printer paper. You're not seeing a lot of that shading. You're not seeing a lot of, you know, variety in the ink. But that's because it's the cheap printer paper. It's just not going to show that. Oh, and you know what? I keep forgetting. I have this to hold this down. Let me put it somewhere so I can remember that I have it. Okay, so next we're going to use this HP 32 paper. And like I said, you can kind of tell the difference by feel. This paper is a lot smoother. The pen glides across it a lot better. I'm going to shake it up again. We want to make sure we give every paper a fair test. Where did it look? There it is. Okay, I'm going to dry this off real quick. All right. What I do with this is I use it to hold the paper still, and sometimes it works. So, all right, stick that in there. I'm going to do the same thing, and already this feels so much smoother. I don't have that weird scratchy sensation I was getting on the other paper. Now, it could just be that I have the pen turned around correctly. That could be all it is, but this paper is a lot smoother. Okay. That's Radiant Rosewing. Ferris Wheel Press. And this is the HP 32 paper. All right, and we'll give that a second to dry, but it already looks pretty nice. Compare it to that. All right, and then we'll do the Tomo River paper, which is this one. And Tomo River paper, you can buy it in notebooks or loose leaf like I get it, and this is how it looks when you get it. They also have different size sheets, and I just got these because they are relatively inexpensive. I've also cut them down to size a little so that I'm not wasting as much on just swatches. All right, so just like before, we're going to close this up. This ink really looks pretty in person. It's like flower petals, writing with flower petals. That's the best way I can describe it. I almost expect it to, you know, to be scented. It's not scented, but, and there are scented inks that maybe I have some I can show you maybe, but in another video. But no, it looks, it's such a perfect, like, pink rose petal blush color. You know, I almost expect it to have a rose fragrance, but it doesn't. It's very, very pretty. All right. Stick this in here. We'll do this again. All right. So this is the Tomo River paper. There's the swirls. And some larger splotches here. And this weird, I don't know what this design is called. It's like a weird figure 8S thing. And then the circle. Fill it in. And what the reason, if you haven't seen my other video, the reason this paper is more expensive, it's really smooth, almost, it's not shiny, but it feels like it should be almost. And when I first used it, I thought, oh, the ink's never going to dry on this. It's too smooth. But it does dry. And because it's so smooth, the ink floats to the kind of, I don't know, floats on top a little bit. And it, I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like it's slowing down the drying process so that the properties of the inks show through before it fully dries. But whatever it is, it's really pretty. I'm going to get more because I was sitting here talking and letting it dry on the pen. Okay, Radiant Rosewing. And it's by Ferris Wheel Press. And this is the Tomo River. Tomo River paper. I'm going to draw another one of those circles. Yeah, the ink just pools on top. I don't know if you can kind of see. It's almost like a puddle of ink. But then it will absolutely dry somehow. I don't know. It's pretty fantastic. Huh, well, we got this going already. We might as well continue with the design, right? There, now it's a flower. Anyway, let me clean this off, and then we can do the swatch. I'm going to clean the rim off there. Some of the ink is on the rim. And your fingers will get stained by doing this, but that's just part of the fun. Alright, so that's how that looks. So far, it's still wet. We're going to let that dry. But you can already see the shading coming through on here, and it's not on there. So that's what the difference the paper makes. If you happen to have some fountain pen ink that you purchased, and it was supposed to do all these fancy things, and it wasn't doing the fancy things, and you couldn't figure out why, it might be your paper. That is what I learned. That all my problems that I was having with fountain pen inks when I started were all because of the paper. So I'm going to move these a little bit out of the way on this side, I think, so that I don't accidentally put my arm into it. All right, so this is the swatch. So as a reminder, last video, this is the ink that we tested, and this is what the swatch looks like. The little drop is formed by some sort of a resist they have on the paper, so when the ink goes over it, it shows through. Alright, so shimmer's on the bottom. Let's shake this up. And we'll get a nice nice test blotch, I hope. This does not want to stick to the glass. I'm kind of curious now to see how this ink will behave on a pen, like inside of a fountain pen. I have a feeling the color will be darker because this is just, it does not like the glass. It's very bizarre, but very pretty, so totally worth it. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, the way it's like behaving on this little dip. It could also very well just be me because I don't know what I'm doing. At least not like I should. Okay. So we'll let that kind of, let that dry on there. I'll rinse this off. And then what we'll do is write the name. But first, I'm going to shake it up again. Now they do have inkwells, Ferris Wheel Press does, that stir the ink for you, kind of. They're called carousels, and you put the ink in them, and they spin. So when you want them to, you can spin them, and so it kind of mixes the sparkles back up so you can dip, and that way you don't have to go through this process every time. Also, if you put this in a fountain pen, you don't have to obviously shake the bottle because you'll shake the bottle the first time, fill the pen, and then just when you use the pen, before you use it, you just shake the pen itself and start writing. Also, if you do use a fountain pen, you're going to want to store it with the nib facing up if you use shimmers. So if you pretend this was a fountain pen, it's not, but if it was, you would store it this way with the nib, with the writing end up, because if you don't, what happens is the shimmers settle down into the nib and then it'll clog the pen. But as long as you store it facing up, you should be good. And I showed some of the pens that I use with my shimmer inks last video. You can go back and watch that. They work very well with shimmer inks. I've had no problems whatsoever. Okay, so this is Radiant Rosewing. And we'll just do Ferris Wheel Press. There we go. This is a very pretty color. Another nice thing about doing these swatches is you get a big blotch of ink, so you can really see what the color will look like, rather than, it's sometimes kind of hard to tell with the thin writing lines, but with the big blotch like that, it's pretty obvious. Okay. Let's see if this is dry enough to show any of the properties. So I think the shimmers on this did not come out very well on the blotch, which is fine. Let me try another method. It was not liking to stick to that glass dauber thing I was using. Now this is just a little plastic eyedropper. I use these a lot of times for my soap when I was putting like colored oils in on the top of the soap or whatever. So it'll work great for this. So I'm just going to put like a drop here because the shimmers are all in this, in that little dropper. And then what we'll do is just take this and use this to spread it out. There we go. Because like I said, this glass thing, that particular ink wasn't sticking very well to it. And each ink is going to have its own properties, its own personality. That's normal. Don't worry about that. And they all perform differently. So we'll show the swatches here in a minute. Let me just get this lid back on here. Okay. Put it back in the box so that it stays. I store them in their boxes for two reasons. One is it keeps them safe so you don't have a bunch of glass bottles bumping into each other. The other reason is because these inks, each ink is going to be different. Each company, each color, everything is different, but a lot of times they are not light fast, so they will sit. If you let them sit on a shelf, they'll be all faded later on and you'll be sad. So stick it back in there like that. You fold the flaps back down and now it's protected. And these boxes are nice because the foil, the light's not going to get through the foil. And sit on the shelf and look pretty. like that. And it's protecting it from the light, so it's not going to fade. Okay, that's looking a lot better. I want to see if these shimmers come through. So, tilt that. Hopefully you can see. In person, it's really pretty. It's again, subtle but beautiful. It's a beautiful shimmer. It's not glittery, like there's no big chunks of glitter or anything. It just has a subtle shimmer right there. I think it's picking it up. So that's very pretty. And I'm not somebody who likes pink usually, so that's beautiful. Now let me show you these papers. So this was, let's see here. Here's the cheap printer paper. So you can see, yes, it does show the pink. The shimmers, they're there. You can see the shimmer, but it just looks like pink ink for the most part. You can see a little bit here where the ink went down a little bit lighter. It has a little bit like a lighter of a color, and here where the ink was heavier, it was a little bit darker. So you do get a tiny, tiny bit of shading, but it's going to depend on how much ink you're laying down. And it's not nearly as noticeable. You can't really see it in the writing very much at all. This is the HP 32 paper, and here the shading is a little bit more noticeable. You can see here it's darker. This little blotch here, it starts out darker and gets lighter as it goes down. Here it's a little bit lighter on the left and gets darker on the right. It doesn't really show up that much in the writing, but the shimmers do. The shimmers show, and I hope you can tell. And then this is the Tomo River paper. And you can see the shading is a lot more noticeable, especially over here. You could really see that. The shimmers are more noticeable, and it's just much, much better. And also I've noticed with the shimmers and the special effects inks, they look so much better in a wide, like a broad nib pen than they do in a fine tip. So if you have the option of like a fine tip pen versus like a medium or a broad, I would go anything other than fine. The fine pen nibs they look elegant, they're beautiful, but I don't find that they show off the properties of most inks very well, unless the ink is just like, maybe it's really, really smooth to write with or whatever. Basically the writing experience itself is improved by the ink, then a fine nib is fine. But if you want shimmers and things, you're not going to really see a lot of the special effects in a fine nib pen. You can still use it, but it may not give you the effect that you want. So all the pen nibs I have at least a medium nib, except for the ones where I wanted like a more plain ink to go into for maybe, not fun purposes. Maybe I just want like an everyday pen, but I still want to have a nice ink in there. I'll get like a fine tip and then put maybe like a normal blue or black ink in there. So, all right, but you can do it however you want. That's what's great about this. Okay, so here's our swatch book. It had one page before, oops, you can barely see. So the swatch book had one page from last video, and now we're adding page 2. Yeah, those shimmers are so pretty. All right, so here's how it looks. There's the cover, page 1. And wow. Page 2. There we go. And you can see the shading a little bit better here. I know I put a second layer of ink over the top, but that kind of helps show the shading effect. And the shimmer in real life is so pretty. Since it has both a pink and a gold shimmer to it, it's really hard to explain, but you can see both, and it's very, very, very pretty. So I do recommend this one. I mean, I don't think there's any inks I have that I don't recommend, but this is a beautiful, like, deep, moody blue. But this one's a really bright and fun and almost floral pink. And with a little bit of shimmer there, it's just really, really pretty. This would be so fun. These colors are so fun for, journaling and, like letter writing or anything. If you want to start really using your inks and you get a pen pal or 10, start writing to people. You know, we used to do that. I know we just have emails and stuff now, but maybe write a birthday card or something and use a fun ink, because people receiving it love the inks too. They've probably never seen this shade of pink with shimmers in it or something, or whatever color you decide to use, and it just makes the card a little bit more special. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions on brands or colors you want to see or anything, let me know. If I have it, we can review it, or maybe I can get it. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great rest of your day.